Good evening, everyone. Making sure the technology is working. Seems to be. Well, it looks like everything's working. I think. We're gonna finish up some from last week first. Need a little knob from the little lidded bowl that we did last week. So that's where we're gonna start. Close up the shower curtains. Keep the mess contained to one place. So if you weren't here last week, that's where we're at. This is the lid for the bowl. Now we need a little knob for on top of that. So that's where we're going. This is a piece of Bradford pear. Also has a bit of a crack in it right off the bat. So we got to get below that. It's not a very big piece to work on, but it's what I took off of some of the offcuts from the bowls. So it kind of is what it is. So, um, I use our swept back grind on the bowl gouge just to take some of this material away. See if we can get below this crack right off the bat. Well, we're gonna try and finish up the knob for the one from last week first though. And I think we might do a couple Christmas ornaments. Gotta get below that. A little crack in it. Might as well true up the end. Of course, this doesn't need to be very big. I think we got past it. Got a bit of a, I don't know, almost like a grain separation on it. So we definitely didn't want that. And we don't. Just kind of thinking out loud a little bit there. Definitely don't want a hole in the end of it. This would actually just turn around between centers, so there's still center mark in this end. Get rid of that first. Looks like I got rid of it. Most of it, all of it. A snowman bell. So elaborate on what a snowman bell would be. Let's see, there's. I don't make very many Christmas ornaments. I kind of leave that to my dad in some ways. Probably the reason I don't make very many of them is don't. They're kind of like the almighty crapshoot on. Of course, the ones my dad does, he gives all of his away. And I guess I could do some of that too myself, but I try and make this little hobby sort of pay for itself, I guess you'd say. But generally, things like that for me are going to be something I'm going to try and sell. And Christmas ornaments are just not necessarily something that sells very well. Oh, okay. You had me confused with what you were telling me. You're making a snowman bell. Here's sort of the shape that we're looking at. It's going to be like a Hershey kiss on the top and just a little sweet cove. We're not going to know whether it's going to be the right. I might take it down just a shade bit more, I think. Well, that's sort of what I thought you were telling me you were making, or you made. I was going to commend you on something that I've never seen. So something like that. Pretty big out here. This will look alright. Well, no, do we put it on the piece, and then until then it's probably going to be too late. Give it a little flare underneath. Parting tool would be a good thing to have. Oh, that's a bit too close for that. Guess before I do that dumbness, kind of would be a good idea to give it a quick little sand. I like the idea of actually sanding and put a little finish on it before I did that. Do that. Do need to make sure I undercut that as well. The last one, actually the one I did for the demonstration, I kind of half-assed undercut it, and wasn't undercut enough. Things like this are always a bit of a challenge in a way to actually get them sanded well, especially when you got big fingers. Need a paper towel. Wanted the paper towel because I saw there was a line, which doesn't really show up on the camera, but there's a line back here. Chances are that's a sanding line, some sort right there. It still seems to be there. Although when you turn it off and look out of it, it's not there. So, I don't know. Seeing things today, I guess. That's through 400. We'll hit it with a bit of 600. Be easier if I had a piece that was good. Tear a little bit off the end, and we got still not just enough to get in there and do our work. It's one of the reasons I cut the sandpaper rather on the small side. The small side for what most people think. That way you use the whole thing. I don't need a big quarter sheet of sandpaper. Something like that for something little. You waste. I find it cutting them that way I get more use out of a sheet because you're wasting less little bits just to take that really sharp point off there. I want it to go to a sort of a crisp point, so to speak. I just don't want that crisp point to be sharp enough to stick somebody. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, the spine of this has really has gone a long way. Yeah, well, that's a lot of us, you know. That's the yeah, inspiration for a lot of woodworking, lathe working, any of that stuff. You know, I got started into woodworking very, very young. My dad had a little shop. He still has a little shop. He's now 90, but uh, that's really close right off the bat. 10 as we go. Not running very, not running real fast, but as you take that away back in there, and it doesn't have any support. I'm going to use my parting tool. This parting tool is grounded at an angle. It actually matches the dovetail, but it also will allow me to get up underneath something. I can lay it right on the edge out here and get me a fair amount underneath it. I did leave a little bit of a flat spot on that. Probably not quite enough for that though. Mm, chances are very good. Not that one. I do have a 3/8 inch detail gouge is what they would call that. I kind of bought this by mistake because I wanted something different. Detail. Mm, so I'm going to run into the chuck. Either way with that one. Plan C, I guess, is a teeny tiny little skew. That's the only thing that this thing is actually good for is basically to using as a little miniature negative rake scraper. So it will allow me to sneak way underneath there. No, I'm not a chess player. Is that a good enough reason for not making one? No, I've seen people that make them. That thing will probably be loose now, but how long do we need it though? That long? Gonna go up in there. Let's go out about there. That's always another downfall is they usually get them too long. I'd almost rather it be too short than too long. There's more than enough loose surface up in there. There we go. I think that'll work. Why you didn't put a little finish on that before you did cut it off? That would have been a whole lot easier. Bradford pear. I did take it out of a log. Was able to dry. It was dry enough to finish it. That sucker is moving. Well, yeah, and that would be another hang up for me. Um, if you did enough of it, enough of them, or enough of it, I'd say this thing's going to have to sit around here for a couple weeks. This bowl has moved. Camera won't show it, I'm sure. It has moved enough that I can move that lid that far sitting on top of it. The maple lid is kiln dried maple, so it didn't move. This little bowl is moving. So it's going to have to go back on at some point and re-true up that rim a little bit. Huh. Really didn't take that into consideration. It definitely has moved. If I get it to hold still in the center point, so of course our center point's going to be right here at the end grain, because it always shrinks inward and pushes the end grain up. That's kind of a pain. Wasn't really accounting for that. Yeah, I did some, I guess I would call them figurines for some painting lady teacher a couple years ago. One of them things that sort of my wife got me involved in doing, and I said I would do them, but thought I was only making 3 or 4 or 5 of each of them. Ended up being more like 25 of each of them, or 20 of each of them. So I got done with them. You could line them up and side by side, and like you say, they were, I would call them, just like you say, more like close cousins. I certainly can't do what those production turners from over in the UK are doing, where they line up them spindles, the whole way down through there and take a picture of them, and they all look the same. That's not my vocabulary for sure. So instead of having a finished piece, we're not going to have a finished piece out of that. Kind of discouraging a little bit. Get rid of a sharp edge. I have to finish. I want to put some finish on that finial. Talking and not paying attention. Right, yeah. And the only way, something like that, the only way that people can tell a difference is if they're sitting truly side by side and somebody's looking for it. The average person, another one of them scenarios of the person that's going to see something like that would be another woodworker, wood turner that has an eye for the detail of exact matches. Because generally the average person will never pick up something like that. So that is the hole size that was drilled in that piece. Whether this is going to be hopefully tight enough without slicing it. Hopefully, but probably not. Yeah, it's tight enough. All I needed to do is hold it so I can put a little finish on it. Doesn't need to spin really very true. It just needs to stay in there. Very simple, quick and easy way of doing such things as that. If it didn't fit tight enough, just take it and slice in it, and then the jaws will compress that enough to hold it. I don't really remember where I saw somebody do that, but I'm like, that's stuck in the brain quite well because I use that quite often for doing some different things, especially small stuff. Quick and easy, and it's a good way of doing it because I do some ornaments after that. Some of these little like acorn ornaments or acorn birdhouse ornaments, whatever you want to call them. I'll use the same thing, same method there. That one, if I didn't throw it away, that one already has a slice in it. Got too big of fingers. I can't get down in them little itty bitty cracks. So a little drop right there, right straight down in them does wonders. Kind of surprising that that little bowl moved because this stuff doesn't. I mean, if there was any real amount of moisture in there, the super glue would set up on contact, and it's not. I don't know quite why it's has done that to me. Obviously, I should have turned it and left it go for a week or so. As for us right now, the temperature has dropped. The day was like 38 degrees for a high. So that means the furnace is running quite a bit, and I have hot air heat. So the humidity in the house is not as low. And with the hot air heat, it has a tendency to dry things out considerably quickly. So that'll work. Should be pretty much the same color as the little bowl. little bowl. We might just throw that back on because I know this is, I have this tenon for the foot is set at the right depth. Mm-mm. Probably could be a little bit smaller. Definitely won't glue that in place. Have to take it upstairs and show it to the critic. I think it could be, I think it could be a shade bit smaller than what it is. I don't really want to get it. To me, I don't want to get something like that too small, or then it'll look out of place just as well as it would any other way. Hopefully I'm right. I used the big jaw. I'm pretty sure I used the big, just the regular standard, yeah, standard 2-inch jaws. This is just a curiosity thing. I'm not going to do anything else with it. I don't think at this point tonight. I think I'll just let it go. Yeah, it tightens down almost fat 16th, couple mils, as a lot of them people would like to say. Oh yeah. So when it spins, you can really see it. And the tool rest up, so I have a solid point for the flat of the Allen wrench. Yep. That's wild. So I guess we'll leave that go for another week or two. Kind of disappointing. I was figuring on that being a finished piece to be able to take into the gift shop to sell. But as one would say, shit happens. On to other projects. Another one of the UFOs. I do have some more of that pair actually to turn. So I definitely want to keep that in mind. Because I actually have another little one. I should have left that chuck out. I have another one that's just about the same size. Tiny bit bigger, a little flatter. And I was sort of figuring on putting a lid on that one too. Oh, well. Onward and upward, they say. This is kind of one of the things that I will do in sort of batches. These ornaments, little ornaments. Guess I had the shark gills on when I was doing that because the tenant's considerably bigger than what it should be. We can remedy that situation though. It's kind of got a bad spot on that end anyhow. It looks to me like all three of them that I've got out are the same way. I think I'll just up and clean up the ends of them a little bit. Really would have to. Well, yes and no. Some of it sort of becomes a little bit of a sort of a little bit of a job. I don't necessarily consider it a job, so to speak. I mean, I just retired, but um, I'm gonna do all three of them while I'm at it. You do some of the stuff you do end up making a whole lot of, like tops for me. Just talking with the wife earlier today because we had to go into the gift shop and take stuff in there. And there was one of the vendors in there at this gift shop is the 3D printed stuff, the little kit animals and whatnot. Well, yeah. I know that feeling. Um, but you get too much stuff for one. So I might as well get rid of rather than giving it away. What you could do. Eventually, you run out of people to give it to, though. So, gotta think a sec. Gotta stop and think a second where what I need to do these. You need a clean bottom. A little concave wouldn't hurt. Next would be a drill bit. I would say for me, probably really the only thing that I would say is kind of the production end of it would be the tops. I ended up doing way too many of them. 1 inch. But even though it's kind of doing the same thing over and over again, it's also helping me get a better understanding. Well, that's good people to give it to. That way, if you ever get caught speeding or something like that, maybe they'll cut you a break. So these I just drill an 1 inch hole in there. You have a little Sharpie line on there on a drill bit. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's between my dad and I, there's a couple different. Really, one of them's a church camp place that we donate to every year, and helps them make some money for their youth programs and such as that. That I never had a problem doing. Found this little gauge on Amazon a while back. So there's the bottom of our hole. Add another quarter. Yeah. Everything I've ever found with doing some of that as far as giving stuff to people is then some people, I'm not going to say all, but and you get some of those people that sort of expect you to keep on giving things to them. which then that kind of irritates me a bit. These are too big in diameter for one. Oh yeah, I stand out in the crowd in a hurry, as far as I'm concerned. So they're sort of my half, you know what, shape. And I like these to be light in weight. Sorry. So I do turn around. If we go over there, you'll see a little bit of what we're, even though you really won't see much anyhow. Where else comes up because it's going to be a. This is my idea of the hollowing tool for these. Bought this at a public sale at one point. This is actually probably actually an old Sorby, but it works really well because it's sort of. I made it into a negative rake, which kind of was a mistake that I shouldn't have done. I also need to know how deep it goes. So if it bottoms out, I would have had, you get a teeny tiny little magnet. So if I bottom it out on the bottom, touching the bottom, put my little magnet up there, about where it hits the rim. I know I want about another quarter of an inch of flat on the bottom. So now I know how deep I can go down in there. And I just sort of make this, try and make this curve a little bit more. Not really trying to make it super duper thin. I do actually have, I purchased at Symposium last year that I was at. Did buy a set of little calipers from Trent Bosch. So it will let me measure some things like this. It's probably in the neighborhood of about 3/16 quarter, 3/16. So that should work. It's pretty consistent even. That's kind of scary. But so now I can sort of go back and reshape them. Yes. That I am. I'm actually going to be one of the few one of the few vendors there. I will be there with the Perfect stuff, the Perfect CA stuff. I am not on the list to be a demonstrator, just the just the glue stuff. Now I would say if we check that, be a good idea. Just to make sure that I didn't get wonder if we can get in there that way. Yeah, actually pretty consistent, at least the way it measures. So we're still a solid quarter of an inch in there. That's the only reason I wanted to measure that, because I still want to shape this a little bit more on the outside. So I don't get too carried away on the inside, because I can't. If I was to hollow it or completely shape it first and then go back to hollow it, I wouldn't have enough support behind down here. And it would just chatter and squeal and all that good stuff. Okay. I think we can remove a bit more material. Back in this neighborhood. Nice clean, crisp corner down there. It's probably a little bit too big down in there yet, but once again, we gotta sort of do things in a little bit of a sequence here. I should have a clean enough cut. I should be able to start at 220. At least that's the plan. Get all fresh paper out so we're not wasting time. I hope the level up thing works out for them. Hopefully there's enough people attending to make it worthwhile for all the effort that some people have put into it. I would say anybody that shows up for it, I mean, I would think it would be a good time. It'll probably be more of a good time than it would be to go to just a plain symposium, um, or I shouldn't say a normal symposium, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of get together at the bar or whatever in the evening and do things, at least socialize with the people. Or if you've ever been to any of the AAW symposiums of any kind, there's some of that, but not, I would think, not to the extent of what it should be at this event. This is where you got to keep track of things. It's very advantageous to sand them ahead of time because I'm going to cut this off and I'll have a little bit to do at the very base of it, which I can do that like one of two ways. One is I can put it, since it has a 1 inch hole and I left a little bit at the bottom, I can put that on basically a rod. But the last time I did these, I did it that way. And I was like, I did some more and I'm like, well, you dummy, you have a lid that you're going to do that with. So I can do it with the lid rather than using a separate sort of jam chuck situation. Friction drive. I just like to give them a little detail at the very bottom of it. It makes them look nicer. A lot better if we just went straight overhead. You'd be able to see more of what we're doing. It should also have a bit of a curve to it. I nipped a little, that time took a little too aggressive. Took a little tiny chunk out of the very bottom. That's okay. We'll deal with that once we get to that. Have a That would be one way of mounting it back on. That needs a tiny bit of paper towel in there to make it tight, and I could finish that little bit. But we're also going to make a top for them, or a lid for them, so to speak. So I'm probably just gonna use the lid rather than the base piece. This is one of the things that I am going to teach in a class. It should be an adventure. The real adventure is the fact that part of the adventure is the fact that they just have the standard um, chuck. Actually, I think they're the G3s or something like that. They're not really a very good chuck. So I'm gonna end up starting with 2-inch thick material. Actually, the bases are pretty much already ready to go. The base is going to be a hard maple. The top of them is going to be sapele. That's what they had sort of laying around over at the store. And the reason the bottoms are ready to go is because I was a nice guy and volunteered to come over on Black Friday and turn tops using their material. And what they had was there was some 8-quarter maple, hard maple, which is what I wanted for the tops. So I just used that, and I cut up the board, a couple little boards. It was some leftovers from something else, I think. One of the other people do some classes. One lady does some classes on some of the cutting boards and things like that. That's another one of these little tools. It's like I've never owned one of them. So there's bottom at about a quarter. They did not have them over at the Woodcraft store, and I asked the one guy, like, and he didn't even really know what I was talking about. And I sort of actually come home and found them on Amazon. They're not real expensive, but I think they'll be kind of useful for things such as this. I mean, granted, the pencil would be free, but I kind of like some gadgets. So we might as well just sort of screw that up a bit on the outside, get rid of some material, start around the top. Want about 1/8 of an inch on the end, something like that. Probably when I do this in the class, I'll give them the option. They can try and hollow it a little bit. See how many of them cut it in half. It's always kind of the adventure of doing some of that stuff. Especially seeing as how the first class of this is going to be kind of one of the bit of the brainchild of the store manager. So did I drill that the same? Not really. So there's the bottom of the hole. If I'm going to do it, I don't need any lip down there either. The other probably advantage of leaving 1/4 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch lip, what I did on the other one was down in this area. That's also where my curve is coming around. That would probably be the place that you would cut through it. Quicker than anything, quicker than any place else. That being said, it sounds like it's getting thin. Sounds like. That's one of the hard things to try and get people to understand is your ears are your best line of defense in the turning, because that will tell you the quickest. Really should be used in that fashion. So we're about quarter. It does thin up a little bit down at the bottom, which is a good place for it to sort of start to thin up. I think we're good. Now we can finish shaping it. And like I say, once you get this is another one of them scenarios of get the process down, and the second one goes quicker than the first. Tool ratio is trying to wiggle a little bit. Can't have that because it's right up against the chuck. Not necessarily looking for the perfect shape, but definitely don't want to stick your fingers in there when it's running. Just want to make sure I took a fair amount off down there, so such a small piece, it doesn't really wouldn't matter much if you're not perfect on the shape. You can always sand a little bit. There's definitely a bit of a flat spot. There you know, right? Want the curve to flow down into there. I'm believing. Don't mind me. This is where I'm going back to the basics for the class. Probably much safer to get rid of the excess material with the parting tool rather than having the issue of having a little bit of a catch or something like that. And then the tool goes diving into the spinning chuck, does damage to one or the other or both. Certainly could have left these blanks a little longer than I did. Don't get carried away. Here's where get carried away. Don't think outside that little box that says you didn't sand it yet. It's definitely much easier to sand it at this point than it is when you spin it around, no matter how I would grip it. It's easy enough to sand that last little bit on a different holding method, but definitely to sand up in this area is not the easier path. That would not be the path of least resistance, put it that way. So now it's sanded. we can go ahead. The other alternative too would be to leave that whole piece on there. I have a center point. Let's do that with that one. See another way. Like it, I'm a little bit limited on space in there to try and get a shape that I probably could get in there. It's kind of questionable. It's going to break loose. It could, with the limited amount of material that I have left in there, it could break loose and send it flying, and then you've wasted time and effort. The other thing, and my dad does that. I don't bother with it. He actually drills another hole, a smaller hole in the center that would actually hollow down into there. If I was so minded, I should probably get the little hollowing tool out and reach in there and hollow that little bit out in the middle. I don't know if it would make a difference or not. I mean, there's a fair amount. So that's sitting pretty much on the bottom of the hole. So from there to there is all solid material in there. Of course, it's also another place that you could easily destroy something. But I should be able to go in after that right now. Just a little round bar, then a 1/4 inch round bar. So it probably will want to chatter. But I do have one. Let's try it with that one first. If that one doesn't work, I have one that's about a 1/2 inch wide. That would go in there and do that too. Probably could get carried away with that one, but we'll try it with the little one. Not sure why that's ground on point, but evidently the last thing I was doing with it. So the rest is too high. Not sure that's worth the aggravation. I did get a little hole in there. So whatever I was doing with that should be a little bit more reprofiled into something a little bit nicer, less pointy. Oh, could actually use the bigger one. That would be better. This is on a 3/8 inch bar. Still need a little 3/16 inch cutter in there. So I want it to be at least flat, if not downhill a tiny bit. Once again, I should be doing that. That's just kind of looking for trouble right there. As you see when it chattered, just wanted to vibrate because there's not much holding it down there now. Should have actually did that before I cut it smaller. But got rid of it a little bit. Ah, have a good night. I'm usually there on Wednesday nights. I don't necessarily turn the cameras on and that stuff, but I'm usually there watching, see what they're doing. But have a wonderful night. Last one. Oh, I need to get ahead of yourself. Need to clean up this end first. Spindle gouge is what's in the handle, so that's what we use. So that's our 1 inch hole, hollowing hole. Give it a little mark. So we know where the bottom is at. The bottom is there. And another quarter. Transfer the line the whole way around. Parting tool. And about 3/8 of an inch, something like that. Thereabouts. Just so I know where it's at. Leave plenty of meat down there. Reduce the diameter. That's it, closer to what we want anyhow. Don't like leaving that big fuzzy edge sticking up there. It has a tendency to distract you as far as I'm concerned. Also, if you touch it, it's kind of sharp. Now we'll go ahead and hollow it. Tool rest has to remain back a ways. See where we're at in the bottom. That's our bottom mark, still marked. A little magnet on top of there. It'd actually be better if it was kind of not round, but that's kind of what I have. Nice gentle cut. Kind of squealing a bit, so I've actually thinned it down more on the outside than what I did with the other two. So I forgot this one actually will cut on the center on the bottom. So I still leave a good solid 1/4 of an inch or more, a little bit more on the top, this very top rim that's just the drill hole. Actually feels kind of feels pretty good. Go ahead and check, see where we're at. quarter less on the bottom. So it looks like I could remove a little bit more up in this area. Also where it wanted to really squeal. So there just isn't enough material when I did it that way. Gotta be very gentle. Got more material out behind that rim. Left a bit of a hump in there. Take a little bit out of the base. Stop and look. Make sure. Very little out of the base. That was a good indication by doing that in there that now I go back and look, there's a little tit sticking up in the very bottom. So that means I was not where I needed to be height wise. I need to come up there. All by feel. No way of really seeing anything. So we were at 1.25 inches. Now we'll see where we're at. So we're almost 1.5 inches. So I'm hollow down that far. So that's good. And that's dead center hollow. It really didn't go out much on this area out here, which I don't want to. I think that'll work. That'll make it really light. Should make it really light, put it that way. Now we can shape things down further. Actually, before we do that, any time like the present, give it a sand. Notice I'm sanding on the back of it. I'm not trying to stick my hand in between that and the tool rack. So as long as I stay back here, if it grabs, it's going to throw my hand back toward me. So we'll just get the 2/3 of it sanded. Don't take much. We need to back up the turning speed. Kind of liked on the parting tool on the last one, so let's just keep that with that. Don't take away too much. There's a sharp edge. Nice little light cuts. We still don't have a ton of support. Don't want to leave any lines either. Got nice and clean into the corner. Might be better. Actually, might have enough room this time. Might. Starting to wobble already, so rather than sending it across the floor, I'll just give it a little support. Not really worried about the perfect cut down in there because I'm still going to be able to hopefully be able to cut a little bit on it. Nothing else, we can stand the final shape a little bit. Let's see, I left fuzzies and everything else down there, but that's okay. Get it on the next step. Really what I should have did with that one, but that other one, I left the big ring on there. It'll work. I do have some walnut ready to go, hopefully. Yep, big enough. This end, the top of it takes a little bit more material than the rest. A little bit longer of material. Of course, it would help if it was even remotely straight, but first order of business. Not a big deal. Have to keep in mind out in this area here, we'll probably get some vibration because it's so far away from the chuck. So we just want to keep our cuts small, sort of methodical kind of cuts. At this point it can be just straight across, it's fine. That's the corner that's sharp. Oh, I should actually, before I did that, screw up a little area up here, just so that it is true because that's not. Get rid of the razor blade. Fine. Slow our speed way back down. Simple way of marking a tenon because we know we drill it with a 1-inch drill bit. So if I go in there and just mark a line around it, now I know exactly where we're going to. So we're going to run our parting cut down to there. Wanted to use some of these. that one. I made a couple more pointing tools for my classes. They're just a simple parting tool. Amazon steel with metalworking steel. But these two were, I made them for something else. They weren't heavy enough. I made them as a traditional scrape part to do like inside of some I think the lanterns and such things. They were not. They want to vibrate because they're too thin for that. Anything over about 3/4 of an inch over the tool rest, then they want to chatter and vibrate. So I just cut them off. I didn't cut them off far enough. I got a piece in there. So as I'm using them in my own work, because I do the classes once a month, so I have a whole month to use up sort of a bunch of material off of this. When we get close to our line, give it a little taper at the end. Should be a little bit closer to that. There we go. Might as well start with the worst one of the bunch. So it doesn't go over or taper at all. Kind of a little bit surprising that it didn't go over some of it. I'll go back in, straighten it, taper the front. It's just starting to go over that tape. It's going over the taper. This is one you can't see it on back about a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch. If we sort of somewhat straighten that back out, still just too tight. We want it to be tight, but we can't force it on for sure. A little dust. Close, very close. Might have been too much. Oh, there. It just I don't have to beat it on, but it's certainly tight enough now that it holds it on well enough. I will bring the live center up. You know what? I think I'll use the cone center so I have more room. So we'll just bring that up. Start the lathe. Slow the speed down a little bit. There again, this should run true. If you did things, that knocked it out of true though. I do not have, I thought I should have had a center point back there that I didn't have. That'll work. So now it's running true. So we can bring our speed up. We don't need to go super fast. Little cut. Actually, should cut going in that direction. I want to avoid cutting back as much as I can. That puts the most amount of stress on it. So if I just slice across it, get rid of a lot of the diameter that we want to get rid of. Now I did with my bowl gouge. Very quick to pick up the bowl gouge because that's a lot of what I use. I need to be able to get to center. The rest was a little high for that. So now I can give it a nice swooping curve. There's a little material ahead of it. This is all about being very gentle, very light touch. And we're going to make a huge mistake here and do this. See if I can get away with it. I just felt that taking it down smaller. Should have did that first. I'm actually going to pull the tool rest back. I'm actually going to sand that little area right there since I made that change. While I have some support behind it, even though that's not a whole lot of support, but it's also keeping it in alignment so that it can't start to wobble, which is what it's going to want to do once it breaks free. If I put that kind of, even the sanding pressure would make that want to break loose. So, now it looks like there's a line back there from something. There is. Not quite sure what it is, but there's a definite line. These are sort of egg shaped, I would call them. As you see, that just stop spinning. All there is to it. Roll the sandpaper over on itself. It gives me a nice, really nice, simple curve in there, just to get rid of it. Just to get rid of those couple little tool marks. Don't want that to be a point, a super, the finger kind of a point down there. Same with that edge right there. That's also just some 400 paper where I touched that at. Make sure everything's clean.
Even though it's not totally, wouldn't be a total game changer, because it still fits, it still holds it securely. So, stand back. You're doing three at a time. So I gotta keep track of which one's which. I want the lid to be undercut a little bit. I'll just use my spindle gouge back to there. Actually, probably zoom in a bit on that end. A little bit of an undercut. Doesn't have to be huge, but it needs to be cleanly cut off. No sense having a razor blade sticking out there. So now I've undercut it back there. It's a little bit tight for back there. We're done with that, so that now can actually fit more of a glue joint kind of a fit. Because I don't want it to be a super snug fit because the glue has to have something to hold on to. So now, at that point, now you can't do it because it slides on and off. But there's enough room now for the wood glue, because that's what I'll use for that is regular tight bond wood glue to glue them on. Or you could use a medium super glue, whichever you want. So now we can work on our shape. I'm just gonna do one. Oh well. Sweeping curve. A little round curve into that. Make the curve come back over the other way. Before we go on any further, make sure we're not too big. I think that'll be alright. Yeah, so what I look for is the outside of this to be slightly smaller than the widest diameter down here, which is about where we're at. And touch this edge a little bit down here to round it over a little bit more. Use the bottom wing. Basically, it's a little shear scraping cut. A little sandpaper takes care of blending that together. Close the flute to pick up the cut. Does do wonders. And surprisingly enough, you can do most of this with the bowl gouge, although that's a little bit tight on the radius. A little tight of a curve for it, so back to my spindle gouge. Good time as any right there to sand again. If I wait too late, especially for this little area in here, it becomes a bit of a problem. A little bit more difficult, put it that way. The other thing you could do, if you want to, if you're into the thing of making it light as possible, we could come in from the end, somewhere thereabouts. So, and we can take our spindle guide and literally drill a hole up in it. We don't need to get too carried away. That would sort of be the back hollowing, get started in the back hollowing part. So anyone up into there, it definitely could go a little deeper. Actually, a little bug hole there. Not a very nice sound. Should have thought of that before I went as far as what I did. So now if we just use our gouge. So we're up in this area here. So it's gotten rid of some weight. And then we also stopped sanding at 220, so we have finished sanding this bottom piece part. Basically sand it complete, right through 400. Probably actually could go to 600. Particularly care for the bug holes, but I'm not going to start over on one just because it's got a little bit of character to it. Also, it looks fat. Nothing like sanding and go back and cut where you just sanded, but they sort of can be as long as you want, as short as you want. We just want to, if you're going to make this thin, on the thinner side, we need to go in stages. so that we don't introduce too much vibration. Right there, that's getting back just a little bit too far. The mic probably doesn't quite pick up that vibration, but I'm pretty sure if I touch it, yep, can feel it for sure. Back straight overhead. Actually, there's some vibration marks. If you ever get those like striation marks across there like that, they're very consistent. They're almost like texture. Some people I've heard, seen some people do that and say, "Well, that's nice texture. I'll just leave it that way." But that's what that's from. That's just a little bit. Should be able to get rid of them. I'm not going to be able to get rid of them, but should be able to get rid of them a little bit. Lighter touch, even with a little bit more speed to it. I got it. See if I can get my big fat fingers behind it. No, they're not going to go away. Nope. They'll sand out easy enough. Make some room to work. Get rid of the corner that would slice your finger like nobody's business. Now we'll just make a round ball on top. Doesn't have to be perfect at this point. Want that corner underneath there to be nice and clean. This is walnut, so it just wants to keep on leaving a little whizzer behind. There we got it. We have enough support. Yeah, we should have enough support there to actually just sand it again, and the rest of it. And take a little bit more sanding to get rid of those vibration marks, chatter marks. Not a ton more, but you can see I'm putting enough pressure on. It's moving. That shows in the camera well enough. Should be good enough. Wipe off the dust, stop and look. It's gonna live. I probably could have made this a little bit more of a curve in there, but can't have everything. So now we'll cut it. Basically, we'll cut it off. We'll use the rest of that block because I think when I was cleaning up the other day, I think pretty sure I threw the other one away. So what I'm after is just to basically cut it off. And I'm not really worried. It could actually even have a little curvature up there even, maybe. I definitely can't go to a real fine point up there, for sure, because it has to get a screw eye on it. Come on, break off of there. There we go. So that'll have to be has to be cleaned up. Next stage. And here, I'm gonna do. Let's mark where that 1 inch is at. What I will do with this now is drill a 1 inch hole the whole way through. Probably pull that back out of the chuck, and slice it. So for the moment, that's all I'm going to do with that. I'm going to bring this taper down further than what it is. Give me more room to work. Okay, something like that. Ouch, don't run your finger into the damn drill bit. Yeah, that's your blood. Now drill the whole way through, just the whole way through. Don't want to drill into the chuck. Now that's probably not, see, that's not tight enough as it stands right there to actually hold it. You could put a little paper towel in there, would hold it, sort of. Grain is running that direction. Too many things sitting in front of my bandsaw. Make a little room. And figure out which way the grain is running. So now when we put it back in the chuck, we want to put that cut line in between the jaws. So when we slide this in, first off, we're going to slide the whole way in, tighten up, and now it's very secure. Now we can finish up down here on the end. Told you that drill bit stuck me. Nice little slice on the side of my finger. So now this should run true. were true enough. Maybe. Didn't get it pushed in there quite right. Uh, Usually they'll actually run pretty true. For whatever reason, that doesn't want to cooperate quite so well. Nor did it want to hold it very well. And of course, it's kind of lie behind where you can't reach it. Dirty little bugger. Ask for the back to China. Never fails when something comes out like that small. It's always got to go back to where you can't reach it easily without moving a bunch of stuff. So I think part of our problem, face shield back, this is a little bit too long because it's compressing back here. Which it should work. It's almost compressing that the whole way down. Yeah, I just didn't have it quite tight enough. It's very weird that that one does not want to run any truer than what it does. Usually I might have a little bit too big of a, the tenant's not quite right. So it's trying to throw it out of whack a little bit. Now let's try again. Probably should have just left well enough alone out here. I'm going to need a flat. On the very end. Something like that. Sand this little end. Give it a little round. Basically, final shaping is with the sandpaper. Just can roll it over. It'll make a little curve for me. Run one curve into the other. Something like that. All done with 320. Definitely don't need to go back any further than that. Just takes a little bit longer to sand a little bit longer with with the 320 than what I normally would. And it was cut cleanly, even though it was even though it's not running perfectly true. The area that I cut is running true to that axis. So as I sand back up over where I didn't cut, then you can feel it sort of bumping along on your fingers. No big deal. Do need a tiny little center point. Just do that with the point of the live center. Just basically just touch it. And I got to get my little teeny tiny little drill bit. Which is in a pin vise. So now that I have a hole, basically a starter hole in there, should let me get in there nice and easy, semi-easy. These pin vices, you can never get these suckers to be tight enough. As soon as you push too hard on it, it pushes it back into the pin vise. And that's it. So it's ready. It's ready for the little brass eyelet. Could have finished the other one in the same fashion. This one now it'll really wobble around because now I'll grab it out further. Hopefully I can get a good enough grip on it. Doesn't need a super grip. We'll go ahead and finish that. I'll finish off the bottom and then we're going to call it a day. Even though we sort of only got one done, I really don't have the material ready to do another one. The bases take longer than the top. So we'll just spin it as slow as the lathe will go, which is in my case about 175 RPM, something like that. My traditional 3408 finish. Just dribble it on the top. The reason I pull it back is so that I don't stick it fast to our little holding fixture. Put plenty on. Want it to soak in. The wonders of having a time delay on this. Preferably not push too hard that I throw it into the pile of chips. Won't be the first, won't be the last. For sure. Rub it in, getting off the excess. And what I'm after right there is to get rid of the excess material, excess super glue sitting on the surface, which we do not want. Little shot of activator at a distance. Doesn't need to be spinning while I do that. Take it out of our chuck and set that off to the side. And the other thing I will have to do, and I will do that a little bit later, I will take a little bit more of the super glue and go in around this edge carefully so that that's finished, because as it stands right now with the top on it or the bottom on it, that would show that it wasn't finished up underneath there. You don't want that. But I didn't bring two. I'd have to go get another glove to hold on to this with a glove. because if I use my bare fingers on this, even though I've activated it, I very easily could find a place that's not what you want it to be. Your moisture in your fingers would actually could pull that up, pull a little bit of super glue out of the pore somewhere and stick your fingers fast. But we won't do that. Set that off to the side. Yes, I brought it over. We'll do better on the next one because these you can save and just keep using them over and over again. You're not going to make a new one for each one because you're drilling the same size hole all the time. This is another way of doing them. Doing that part of them, the bottom part of them. This will slide up over that like such. Enough friction there should be. We'll find out. Could fit a tiny bit snugger than what it does. There again, too snug and we break things, we crack things in half. Actually, it has a high spot out there in the middle of no man's land. Again, let's see if one layer of painter's tape. A lot of times, one layer of painter's tape is too much. We'll put it back here. Go the whole way around. Cut it with a knife. Hopefully get underneath that one. Because right there would be 2 layers. Painter's tape and then get cut quite all the way through. And that's because I'm using my knife working in the garage. Close enough. See whether it snugged it up too much, which would be probably normal. I'm not going to force it. I'm just going to twist it on there. So now it doesn't, once again, it doesn't matter if it doesn't run through, but it's on there very securely just to do the finishing. Once again, same process that we just did on the top. A little bit of 3408. This stuff here, this is actually some like sapwood of cherry. There's these really interesting markings on it. Wish I had more of it actually. It actually was a branch. It's very, very porous. You can see it just keeps wanting to look dry. I want to try and saturate it as best as I can. Looks like we're getting to a saturation point. You can see it looks like it's staying really, really wet because it is, and that's all super glue goes the whole way through the paper towel into your finger, hence the glove. I see people doing some of this without the glove on. You're looking for trouble. Super glue gets very hot when it starts to settle, for one. Number two, you could stick a paper towel to your finger in a hurry, as well as sort of burn your finger to go with it. I'd rather not do either. Gloves are too cheap. So that's all there is to it. Quick and easy, especially for something so simple as this. The, the other way to finish something like that would be to actually put it together and spray it with, use some sort of rattle can spray. Done that before, but this is actually easier. Should have given that a minute. Actually wanted to stick fast in my hand right there, even with the glove, because I'm sort of squeezing it. It did. It pulled some back to the surface and smoothed it out. That will require a little bit of sanding with 800 grit sandpaper tomorrow before I buff it, because I got impatient. And see the shiny spots on my hand. It's also where it didn't. When I squeeze it, you're squeezing the tubes of the wood because it is thin, so it squeezed some of that back up. There it is a sort of a finished piece. Can back out a little bit, see better. So that'll be our finished piece. It may take a little, since now the top has been sitting there for a couple minutes, to be able to touch it with the bare hand. Roll my paper towel up much smaller this time. And we'll get some glue on there, just on the very end. And I can go around that edge. That edge right there is all end grain, so it will soak it in very, very quickly, which is fine. The other quick part is I want to get rid of any that going out over that edge, because it will set up very quickly on itself. So now that's taken care of underneath. So the only thing left to do is sort of let them dry. I got super glue slopped up over top of it, so I will glue that on with super glue. Matter of fact, I'll go grab it quick like. That'll be a medium super glue. Be right back. That one lives in the refrigerator, so I don't use it very often. So this is the 900. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a bead of it on the inside of the base. A nice sort of healthy bead to go with it. Get it together the whole way around. And now we'll sort of sit that upside down. That's how it's going to sit. I'm going to take it over. My workbench has holes in it for bench dogs. So I will literally sit that on there. So whatever excess is still sitting in that, I can even pull it off and make sure that I have total contact the whole way around. And then we'll just set that in there like that, and we'll let that alone. This is also a slow setting. This has almost a minute delay. So letting it sit like that makes it, forces that or allows that to run down along any of the areas in there, and we'll fill up that. Tomorrow it'll be ready to be buffed and put the little
copper on it.
Like,
And that's kind of all there is to it. Not real rocket science. Just kind of following some simple steps. Anybody have any questions, comments? Feel free. Otherwise, we're going to be done for the night. Come back again next week. That's amazing that tape there, that painter's tape there is actually very thin, but you can see just a little too much for that. But whichever. I now have a little stack of drawers that my wife gave me. So then all those little pieces that you make to do that kind of work, I keep all them. I don't really necessarily worry that it's, if you want something like that, make sure it wants to run true all the time. The tenant needed to be the right size for starters. And, but for doing what I did with it, they worked just fine. So other than that, we're going to call it a wrap. Go have a beverage or two. And we'll be back again next week. Stop back and check it out.